Hi everyone, my name is Roel Deuss. I'm the VP of Product Marketing at Fuel 50, and thank you for joining this presentation, which is titled The Race to Skill Centricity. Now, this race is not really about getting there first. Rather, it's really about how you optimally prepare for and execute your unique journey towards skill centricity. So think about it from the perspective of entering into like a challenging endurance race. For example, the 24 hours of Le Mans. To successfully compete in such a race and to finish, you really need a clear strategy, you need teamwork, you need a great car, and you need the ability to adapt when obstacles arise. And that is really what we'll talk about in this session today. Now, a little bit about myself. I've been with Fuel 50 for close to 4 years now, and for the majority of that time, I operated in solutions consulting. So I've been talking to a lot of our customers and prospects around the topic of skills-based organizations, how to go about moving towards that skills thesis, and applying, amongst others, a talent marketplace to get you there. Let's talk first a little bit about why I call this topic skill centricity, because there's lots of different terms in the industry. Some call it skills-based organizations, skills first, right? But for me, skill centricity refers to organizations taking a skills-centric approach towards their talent processes by focusing on identifying the skills and capabilities that are needed to achieve business goals. So the emphasis is going to be less on jobs and more on aligning people to work based upon what tasks make up that work and what skills are needed to successfully complete those tasks. So think about a skill-centric organization as one where skills are treated as assets that need to be mapped, that need to be developed and deployed for maximum impact. So skill centricity really requires your HR processes to adapt, including how you recruit, how you do learning and development, succession, as well as workforce planning. Now, LinkedIn, I think a week or two ago, just announced a really cool new recruiter product update. I think it's called Recruiter 2024. And what struck me when they announced this at their talent conference as well as online was the language that they were using describing this new Recruiter 2024. And I'm just going to quote here for a second. It says, by combining generative AI with the LinkedIn insights, they can start to infer the type of candidate a hiring manager is looking for and provide higher level or higher quality candidate recommendations from a much wider pool of candidates, moving beyond the brand name companies that have traditionally been the default. And I find that really remarkable, right? Because this is really how we should be recruiting. You know, too often and still too much, we are relying on, you know, the brand name appeal of candidates that have worked for certain organizations, maybe because these are organizations that we're competing with, or maybe these are organizations that are really well known, like, you know, Google or LinkedIn, for example, right? But instead, right, this new technology allows you to really look beyond, you know, that shiny name on a company, or maybe even, you know, which university you've gone to, but really dive into and focus on, does this particular candidate have the skills today that are required to do this job today? So in a nutshell, if done well, skill centricity will really create one common skills language that can really be that red thread, the connective tissue almost that weaves together your talent processes that may still be siloed within your respective organizations. Now, why would you care, right? Why would you want to get into this race towards skill centricity? And it's easy to forget sometimes, but at the end of the day, everything we in HR as HR practitioners do should always be about one thing, which is accelerating company performance. And you know what? Research is showing that a skill-centric model allows companies to be more agile, productive, and innovative, which are really the key ingredients for superior business performance. Now, Deloitte's research into the skills-based organization shows that skill-centric organizations are 63% more likely to achieve business results than those that have not adapted such a skill-centric approach. They are 52% more likely to retain key performers. And they are 107% more likely to place talent effectively. And this one is really key, right? Because scientific research tells us that our employees are most engaged and most productive when they are in a role or on a project where they get to utilize the skills they're good at and enjoy advancing. Now, these are all really great stats, based upon, reputable research. But the key now is, can we, with HR technology, really demonstrate that we're improving these performance indicators? And that is one of the things I'm going to be showing you today as part of a really quick demo of our new Impact Insights. Now, you may be asking yourself, how can I, in my role within talent acquisition or learning or development or talent management, really impact that company performance? Well, it's critically important to start with the problem and not the solution. What are some of those critical business needs that can be your specific use cases for entering this race to skill centricity? So I'll run through the ones that we typically see with our client base, and they may have one of these or multiple of these that have been defined as their business problems or use cases to solve for. The first one really being workforce agility. Now, this concept of creating a more agile workforce basically allows the organization to best utilize its talent that it has by placing them on the right projects in the right roles at the right time within their organization. Bridging talent gaps, right? We know that a lot of jobs still go unfilled. Now, taking a more skill-centric approach to your recruitment processes, like the example with LinkedIn Recruiter, you're actually starting to widen the pool of talent and candidates that you are considering. For example, if you're having that skill-centric approach, you may find candidates without a degree that actually are really good matches for the jobs that you have. Bridging skill gaps, right? This actually requires you to understand what the skills are that are needed to achieve your business goals and what skills you currently have. That way you'll understand what gaps you have and how you can start bridging those. Retention and engagement is obviously a really important one that is, closely linked to company performance. And then lastly, which is more from the employee's perspective, right? Employees are craving learning and development to ready themselves for that next internal move to develop their careers, right? To basically further themselves within your organization. Now, it's really important to secure key stakeholder buy-in from your executives in the business that want to, improve, for example, cost efficiency through workforce agility, that want to retain top talent and want to drive innovation by equipping the talent with the right in-demand skills that are needed today. So now that you've identified the business need or problem you want to address, let's talk about technology solutions and in particularly 3 core things I would advise you to look for in a solution. First of all, choose or settle on a skill system of record, a skills ontology or a taxonomy, and I'm going to dive further into this topic in a minute. Ensure that there is skill interoperability between that skill system of record and these other skill systems of truth, as I call them, within your tech stack or within your business processes. And thirdly, and quite importantly, make sure you have done your skill to role mapping so you do have that benchmark as to what skills are needed for the business to be successful in meeting its objectives. Okay, so let's talk about that skill system of record, right? Skills ontology, in essence, helps with creating that common language of skills across your organizations. And there are a couple of considerations I would, recommend you take into consideration here. Make sure that whatever ontology you use is market data driven. Nowadays, most vendors will use the powers of AI to analyze key trends in market data, whether those are job postings or candidates' resumes that are freely available on the internet, right? You want to understand from a global perspective what are those key and trending skills relative to a role that are dynamic and are changing every year and maybe every couple of years as technology advances as well. Make sure that the ontology that you're using is multidimensional. Well, let me talk a little bit more about what that means, right? So multidimensional refers to really mapping the relationships between skills within that ontology, like which cluster or domain or maybe function do they belong to? What are adjacent skills? But also it refers to going deeper into what a skill actually means. Is there a definition to the skill in your ontology? Do you define or distinguish proficiency levels within a skill? And I think that's really important to do, right? Because I don't think skill development happens, from one day to the other, like switching on that light switch, right? It's like a gradual process, like almost like a light dimmer that goes from dimly lit to fully bright. And so you want to be able to understand different proficiencies within a skill and ideally also have a behavioral based outcome descriptor for each proficiency level. Thirdly, make sure you have some type of skill type differentiation within your ontology. Now, in the case of the Fuel 50 skills ontology, we distinguish between capabilities, specialist skills, and tool and technology skills. And it's important for us to distinguish between these different types of skills because some of them are easier to learn, maybe by going to a course or doing a certification, like programming Python, than others. For example, coaching or innovative thinking, right? Let me give you an example here in terms of how I distinguish capabilities and specialist skills. Think about playing the piano as a capability. Well, that capability requires a couple of specialist skills, like the ability to read music on paper, the ability to have good hands-eye coordination, to use the keyboards, and also good foot coordination to use the pedals. Those specialist skills in combination with experience and context really provides that capability of piano playing. And make sure that the skills ontology that you use is curated. And what I mean by that is it has to be curated because I don't think can rely on AI and ChatGPT to be completely unbiased yet. The way we do it at Fuel 50 is we use those powers to analyze market data trends. We basically bucket them into candidate skills, and then we actually have humans, IOP psychs, PhDs, and data scientists curate each skill before it actually goes into our ontology. And that curation avoids that you have duplication or quality dilution in your skills ontology and ensures that every word, every definition, and every proficiency descriptor is reviewed against DEIB standards to ensure zero bias. And then lastly, less is more. The skills ontology that has 1 million skills is not necessarily better than one that has a couple of thousand skills, right? Think about it. Most adults, for example, they have a vocabulary range of about 20 to 35,000 words. So, does it really make sense for you to have, so many skills in your ontology? I don't think so. And there's an interesting example of a healthcare organization that went through a process of consolidating, the skills in their taxonomy. They started off with about 36,000 skills, and ultimately, when they really looked at the critical skills that were driving business performance, settled on a library of about 860 skills. So again, focus on less is more. Now here's a good example of an ontology like ours, the Fuel 50 skills ontology that gives you that multidimensionality in terms of skills. You can see in this skill type as a capability of coaching has a definition. It has different proficiency levels, and each proficiency level actually has a unique descriptor and it's a behavioral-based outcome descriptor. So it's important, right? Because if you want to self-assess, or your manager is going to validate the skill for you, it's a lot more objective if they can actually read, an IOP psych behavioral-based descriptor than if it were just a number, or even if it were to just be binary. Now, here's an example, or this is the second, suggestion here is look for skills interoperability, right? So whatever system of record you choose, maybe you choose Fuel 50 skills ontology, make sure it actually, interoperates with skill taxonomies or skill libraries from other systems that are in use. That could be your HRIS, that could be your applicant tracking system, it could be your learning platform or your LXP. Now, let me give you a good example of how we are starting to do that within Fuel 50. So about a week ago, just before HR Tech, we announced the general availability of a new product within our talent marketplace product suite called Learn Plus. Now, Learn Plus bridges skill gaps and enables opportunities for growth. So it really tackles two of those main business challenges that most HR professionals face. And it does so by ensuring that every minute spent learning is purposeful, not just for the learner, the employee, but also for you as an organization. So let me explain this a little bit further. So in Learn Plus, recommended learning is suggested to Nikki in this case based upon what skill gaps does she still have relative to her role? Let's focus on bridging those first, right? Because that enables Nikki to better perform in her role, but it also ensures the organization is bridging critical skill gaps. But it also looks at, are these skills in demand within the organization? And, in the case of, Fuel 50's talent marketplace, in this case, Nikki has explored other opportunities within her own organization through our journeys features and has actually targeted a few roles that she's, growing herself towards, right? It's taking all of these elements into consideration to recommend very personalized, purposeful learning to Nikki that helps her bridge that skill gap from, in this case, beginner to skilled with a very specific learning course recommendation within this case, the Degreed LXP. And as you go through this, you can actually easily reassess your skills as an employee or look for other skills that you may want to grow. And again, Learn Plus will only recommend the top 3 learning courses or content that is available within your integrated content library that help you bridge a skill gap based upon where you are in terms of your proficiency, right? Why would you want to get recommendations of a beginner course if you feel you're already at a skilled level and you want to get to an expert level? Okay, then thirdly, make sure, this is so critical, right? Like the skill, going into skill centricity, that doesn't really work if you haven't done the exercise of mapping skills to roles. It's really the missing piece, I would say. And there's a couple of key considerations here. Make sure this is an automated process because we've all done this before where, we've gone through developing competency frameworks, which would take like a year and a half. By the time you're ready, those, skill to role profiles are already out of date. So make sure it's an automated process, that basically keeps track of, trending skills and capabilities as they change relative to roles. It's really important. Then secondly, it's really important that this becomes your unique skill to role mapping infrastructure. So infusing your, what I call organizational DNA, your values, your specific leveling structure, the fact that you have very likely required competencies for people in senior level positions, right? Like all of that has to be infused to make this particular, let's say, skills infrastructure really your own. And then lastly, you want to be able to also edit these roles, and that is important because if you get the ability to review, share them with subject matter experts or business leaders within your organization to tweak them, you actually get more buy-in from those stakeholders on, the skills infrastructure. Now, I will finish up here with, real quick, glimpse of a proof of concept in terms of our insights product that I want to share with you. And this is really around the use case of retention. Now, this quote is obviously pretty straightforward, right? Companies that excel at internal mobility are able to retain employees much longer than those that don't. And now we can actually prove the value of skill centricity and, a talent marketplace why this new Impact Insights dashboard, which we are going to release in Q1 of 2024, but I'm giving you a preview here. So this is an actual large size enterprise customer, 100,000 employees or more, that is measuring the impact of the talent marketplace. And you can see that they actually have been able to save $140+ million through creating more internal mobility, and $11.3 million through better retaining existing employees. And so we can go through this and see that for active users of the talent marketplace, the internal mobility rate is a lot higher than for every user, including those that haven't gone into the talent marketplace yet. I love this particular stat, right? This shows that active users of the talent marketplace are 3.4 times higher retained than those that are not active users. And now we can go drill down into the data underneath to understand what kind of development actions did they take in the talent marketplace that made them stay with the organization longer. And now you've got an insight that you can share with your CHRO to hopefully increase that 3.4 number for next year. People with a target role, I mentioned this already, folks can actually explore journeys, their next step within their organization, within a talent marketplace. Now, this shows that people that have actually targeted a role are 2.2 times more likely to stay with the company. And in this particular example, more than 100 people have actually targeted a role, but they've also acquired that target role at some point in time, which leads to direct retention ROI. Okay, now I want to finish up with giving you a couple of quick pieces of advice, to summarize this session. Fall in love with the problem, make sure that you establish, where the challenge really lays. Then secure buy-in from the start. Becoming skill-centric is a transformation. It requires support from the top. So look for business leaders that want to improve cost efficiency, drive innovation, retain top talent, right? Use the power of storytelling to show that executive, for example, a day in the life in a future skill-centric state. Make it tangible. Thirdly, perfection is the enemy of progress. So start with a narrow scope, achieve some quick wins, tell those stories and build from there. And meet people where they are, right? Help them understand how to advance their careers in a skill-centric system. And then lastly, picking the right components of your car, right? Ensure you have the best battery pack, your skills library, to ensure trust and endurance. Ensure data operability between skill systems, is much like, having the car's engine and transmission finely tuned, to ensure the smooth delivery of power. And make sure you create a skills-based architecture, which is really the chassis of your race car, because all of the other components are going to be mounted on it. All right, thank you for listening to this presentation. Please follow me on LinkedIn, either through the hyperlink here or by snapping a quick picture from this QR code. And I'd be happy to connect with you and answer any other questions you may have. Thank you very much.